something, right?
How's it going, guys? Chris here. There's been a lot of talk lately on how the Battlefield series is currently in the toilet. It's had a crippling identity crisis for the past 3 or so years, and the latest title, Battlefield 2042, is currently driving the franchise's reputation into the ground, attempting to move away from what the games have always been about. It was supposed to be the one to put Battlefield back on the map, a return to form after the disjointed, unorganised mess that was Battlefield 5, which in the end at least still had a lot of those traditional Battlefield elements still intact. But instead, Battlefield 2042 pretty much turned out to be the complete opposite. If anything, more of a departure away from what makes the series so special and unique, in favour of copying other game franchises while doing a pretty crappy job of that too. These incompetent decisions really don't instill much confidence in the community, showing a real disconnect between the producer and the consumer. As being a fan looking to the future, it's really hard to feel excited or even interested about what's next for the Battlefield series, when the management and designers just want to chase trends, while trying and failing to hijack other games' fanbases, rather than developing and perfecting the series' core elements and appealing to their own dedicated audience. A lot of lessons should have been learnt from Battlefield 5, and it's pretty clear and obvious why the past couple of games have struggled to gain much traction. At least it's clear and obvious to the community anyway. They've both suffered from their own individual problems that have impacted their success and popularity with Battlefield fans. But rather than focusing on all the recent design issues plaguing the series and pushing people away, I want to dedicate this video to all the things that have been done right in the past. All the reasons why fans keep coming back to the games to play them extensively over the course of many years. And all the reasons why Battlefield is still one of the best, if not the best, multiplayer FPS experience around. Something that really shouldn't be changed or reinvented, with it already having the winning formula for success. If I'm going to be brutally honest, it seems like a hell of a lot of this stuff has either been forgotten or at least ignored in the favour of supporting some stupid new vision. And I don't know who needs to hear this, whether it be the suits at the top or the lead managers or whoever's in charge of these game destroying decisions, but the franchise is going to completely die if these new dumb design choices keep getting the green light going forwards. In fact, it's already going to take quite a lot of work to bring it back as it is, and regain the community's trust. The damage has already been done, and the community is sick to death of being let down at this point. I suppose some things have shifted in the gaming world which can't be ignored, like the switch to live service models from premium subscriptions and DLC packs, and obviously if the series was to go down that route, which it has done, then some things would need to be adjusted. But these games can still be made to incorporate the live service model, whilst keeping the core integrity of the series intact. They just need to be done so in a way that it still gives the players what they want, without messing around with the formula or trying to reinvent the wheel. And if they get that right, there's no doubt that said players would be willing to shell out for things like season passes and tasteful cosmetics, providing they fit into the game's theme and narrative, that is. All the core features that Battlefield fans have come to expect from a Battlefield game really need to be there at launch. You can't remove a whole bunch of things that have been there from the start and not expect anyone to notice, let alone be disappointed or angered by that decision. Battlefield games of the past have always given players a wide range of tools, letting them choose what they want to play and how they want to play it. The server browser that's featured in past Battlefield titles goes one step above what most other FPS games offer, letting you choose exactly which server you want to join without restriction, rather than having to rely on a basic matchmaking system that puts up barriers and removes player choice. If you wanted to wait a couple of minutes to ensure you'll join a full server, you could totally do that. If you were sick of playing on a specific map and fancied joining one at a different point within the map rotation, you could also do that too, regardless of whether that server was official or not. Giving the players lots of options and making the game as accessible as possible has been one of the great pillars of the Battlefield series. Having the choice to join and exit specific squads, the option to lock squads so you can keep them private while you're playing with friends, team switch options for when the servers become a bit unbalanced, the list goes on. If you want to delve even deeper into the past features, which have helped keep the community thriving over long periods of time, you could also include stuff like platoons, battle log with stat trackers, letting players share and compare their stats with others in the community, along with spectator modes, allowing some of the more creative fans to make cinematics and screenshots of the games, which is all essentially free promotion on social media. These are the kind of things that need prioritising from the start, being fully integrated within the game to keep players connected with it and each other. The Battlefield community has often been dubbed as the best community in the world in the past, because it's these features that have been keeping them together over the years, coming back to Battlefield as a place to play, socialise and connect with each other. So for starters, a Battlefield game really needs to be designed with this audience at the forefront. Not little Timmy with his mum's credit card, because little Timmy's too busy playing Fortnite. there's no need to strip back, simplify and essentially dumb down the experience so it'll cater to a wider, more casual community, because that's not the community that's going to be coming back and playing these games for many years to come. This dumbing down strategy could also be applied to the whole missing scoreboard fiasco too, as a normal scoreboard gives the game a competitive element, rewarding players when they perform well and letting them compare stats with their friends and other players. At the end of the day, Battlefield's a game, and games are meant to have some sort of competitive elements to them. That's the whole bloody point. Battlefield might not exactly be the most competitive series in the world, being one that can be enjoyed by both veteran and casuals alike, but it still needs stuff like scoreboards and stat screens, so that the non-casuals can get a sense of satisfaction when they play well, which will probably encourage them to play more. They've never been a problem in the past, so I really don't know why they've suddenly become a problem right now. So anyway, before we actually get onto the gameplay side of things, there's something else here that simply can't be ignored, and that's the overall style and art direction of Battlefield games of the past. Apart from a couple of spin-off titles like Battlefield Heroes and Hardline, the series has generally kept a somewhat serious military tone. I mean, sure, you can do some pretty crazy things in it that aren't entirely realistic, but the overall look and feel of the games have been grittier and more mature, especially when you compare it to a lot of its competitors on the market. In a way, they often feel like they've drawn inspiration from war movies, like Black Hawk Down and Saving Private Ryan, and the fans have really connected with that serious tone, being one of Battlefield's unique drawing factors. And this decision to keep it gritty and military focused has been respected by the community over the years, especially with there being barely any AAA military shooters around anymore. Gun animations and general movement physics have always had a bit of weight behind them in the past, making the action feel more immersive and realistic, as opposed to feeling arcadey like in other games. Things like the first-person takedown animations added to this immersion, and made them feel more personal rather than gimmicky, helping to put the player in the shoes of a frontline soldier. I guess these are all contributing factors as to why a lot of people like to put Battlefield into the Milsim category, as although it doesn't exactly play like a typical Milsim game, it's often had a similar style with some semi-realistic mechanics and themes. With all that said, this is another thing that started to change over the past couple of titles, as the cracks started to form with Battlefield 5's more vibrant, colourful art style and customization options, and now with Battlefield 2042's happy, smiley, wisecracking specialists. After coming back from the dark and often brutal Battlefield 1, this sudden shift in tone just feels completely off, and those weighty movement physics have almost entirely gone. This more light-hearted, casual approach is something that long-time Battlefield fans really can't relate to, with most wanting a grittier experience that immerses them more into the action. Art design choices and game mechanics will obviously impact this in a big way, but so does stuff like sound design too. Although I could spend the next 5 minutes talking about how bloody awful those Battlefield 2042 voice lines are, it's other sound design elements in the past that have helped to enrich those experiences and made them all the better. Hearing the whip and crack of bullets as they whiz past and ricochet against nearby cover, empty shells jingling on the ground, guns sounding punchy and deadly like they could actually cause some serious damage, explosions booming in the background while planes soar overhead. This sort of sound design is another thing that's made Battlefield stand out to give players a more immersive experience as they're surrounded by carnage. Battlefield 1 perfected this with its soldiers all charging forwards towards the danger, to the sounds of bombs, gunfire and whistles, infantry shouting in terror, desperately trying to survive what lies ahead. But that same level of atmospheric sound design still hasn't been replicated since, making the past couple of games feel a lot flatter as a result. It might not seem like a huge deal on paper, but it really does make an impact on how these games are to play, making you feel like you're in the middle of the battle. And this nicely leads me over to the fact that Battlefield games aren't supposed to empower you or make you feel like a super soldier, they're supposed to make you feel like you're part of something bigger. A nameless soldier with a role to play, to contribute to your team's victory, using the weapons and gadgets available for your role. Also one of the main reasons why selfish gadgets like armour and med pens don't belong in Battlefield. Not only skewing with balance, making gunfights feel unfair and inconsistent, but also because they support the whole lone wolf playstyle that's often pushed in games like Call of Duty. I literally couldn't make this video without mentioning the class system, and I can't stress how crucial this system is to making Battlefield what it is today. Although it does give people limits, it's those limits that force players to cooperate as a team, adding parameters to the game to make it feel less arcadey and casual, while helping with balance at the same time too. The class system is a very simple idea, but it's a tried and tested idea that's formed the foundations of the Battlefield series right from the start, which has been successful over the many years. Giving players too much freedom doesn't always equate to good design. In the same way that being able to use your hands in football, or soccer for my American viewers, would give you more freedom in that game too. But that would also go against the whole point of being what it really is, taking away rules that are there for a reason. I guess if we're talking more about the gameplay side of things, 64 players seems like a good fit for the series, with 32 player modes being available for smaller skirmishes. I know Battlefield games in the past have sometimes had some pretty large maps that can often take a while to navigate through. Battlefield 4's Goldwood Railway springs to mind. But apart from a few instances, they've generally suited that 32 or 64 player format quite well. Once again, something that's been tried and tested over many games. The more you ramp up map size and player counts, the less detailed and realistic the environments are going to be, sacrificing a lot of the finer details for scale, which in the end makes the maps less interesting and bland, also making it harder for designers to nail the flow of the maps, for both infantry and the vehicles. If we look back at a lot of the older maps in the series, many of them have become iconic and recognisable. Not only because they fit their own game's theme well and look the part, but because they also have a generous amount of cover and shelter to escape from incoming fire and vehicle attacks, along with better designed travel routes and interactive elements, like AA cannons, gun emplacements, checkpoints and guard towers. Not only at the main objective points, but en route to those objective points too, in the spaces in between. Throw in the fact that a lot of this stuff can be fully destructible too, allowing players to blow holes through walls and destroy cover pieces that might be obstructing sightlines. It makes these maps feel deeper and a lot more dynamic. So although you'll be playing in the same areas a lot of the time, there's many different ways you can go about progressing through those areas, giving players more options while giving the environments themselves more depth. If you ask the average Battlefield fan, most would definitely prefer smaller, carefully built, semi-destructible maps that look lived in and believable within the game's world, rather than wide open sandboxes that have barely any character. But anyway, we've covered quite a lot of important topics in this video, but this last one is something that's helped to keep the games fresh and playable in many different ways, supporting different playstyles. And what I'm talking about here is variety. One of the strongest factors that the Battlefield series has been well known and praised for in the past is the fact that its games generally feature a pretty wide variety of weapons, vehicles and equipment, which all function very differently to each other, giving its fans multiple ways to play the game and support their role in it. This sort of creates a rock paper scissors format, where some players have distinct advantages or disadvantages over others in certain scenarios, meaning that everything has a slight learning curve, making for more interesting and varied gameplay, rewarding those who play to a certain gun's or vehicle's strengths. Although Battlefield has featured attachments and weapon modification in the past, it's never really delved too deep into this, like, say, Call of Duty's Gunsmith, as it's preferred to treat the guns and vehicles as their own individual things, with their own characteristics. And this sort of helps to enforce that rock paper scissors style gameplay, providing variety through a more impressive quantity of actual guns, as opposed to their customization through tons of stat changing attachments, helping to make every weapon feel more distinctive. Not only have the past games offered more variety through their content, but also through their game modes too, as over the years, the fans have been able to use all of this content on the modes they prefer. Modes like Conquest, Rush, Team Deathmatch, and the newer Breakthrough, which have all become fan favourites that the community expects to return in full glory, being accessible at all times with their own servers. It's this variety that allows the game to cater to such a wide audience, having some limits in the form of the class system, but providing enough ways to play within those limits to keep it feeling fresh, fun and engaging. So the core pillars of what makes Battlefield what it is are very simple. It needs to have deep leveling and scoring systems to make it fun to play and addictive. It has to make its players feel like soldiers, immersing them in the battle. It needs to provide them with enough variety, with plenty of unique guns, gadgets, vehicles, game modes and maps to choose from. It must have interesting and dynamic battle zones to make firefights engaging for both vehicles and infantry as they play them at and in between the objective points. And it needs to have all the traditional features and traits of a Battlefield game that the player base has come to expect from the series. It really isn't rocket science, and it really doesn't need to be so overcomplicated. These are the components that have made the games in the past so appreciated and special, and this is what needs to be the source of inspiration going forwards. No crazy ideas, no copying trends, no reinventing the formula, and no deviating away from what the series has always been about. And if a Battlefield game was designed with these past ideas at the forefront, then a lot of people would be very happy. So that's it for this one, guys. Feel free to give me your thoughts on all of this, and let me know down below in the comments what you think are the most important aspects of the Battlefield series as a whole. Thanks for watching, guys, like and subscribe for more content, and I'll be seeing you in that next one.